Welcome to the Wild and Kingdom podcast. Today we are shooting with just myself, Jasper Charles, and Mr. Jason Cruz.
Greg Driver's in a tree stand.
He's in a tree stand, and we were in the trees, not in a stand, but in the trees in Oklahoma just here recently.
Yep.
And if you watched that episode, you know it was about Jason's story. And now we are in the Wild and Kingdom studio to dive a little bit deeper on Jason's story of how he's found career longevity in a unique world and how he's constantly reinvented himself and always constantly innovating on diving deeper as who he is as a person. So I'm pretty excited to ask some questions and dive a little deeper on that topic.
Well, it was your idea.
It was my idea. Maybe we should start with there. Why let's start with the idea of why we even did all this.
It felt a little strange, to be honest.
So Jason and I were on a turkey hunt in the spring, and I was thinking to myself before I brought it up to you that you've had a really unique life and you've done something really cool. Abnormal job, I will say, at least a rare niche job.
Yeah. And
specifically a job that I've always been interested in my own life. Like, you know, apart from writing songs, I've always carried two dreams. One was being a songwriter and one was building a brand in any capacity, and specifically a brand that existed within the outdoors. And you've done that, and you've done it in a lot of different variations, and it's really been outdoors telling the truth about Jesus Christ with media. But the form of media that you've done it in has changed. How many years have you been doing this, would you say?
I would say it started in like around 98, 99.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you've been doing it for a long time, and the forms of media.
As Tucker says, Dad, you were born last century.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I've had a long run rate.
And so, but the media landscape has changed.
It's morphed so many times.
And that's a part of the story that intrigues me the most, because
we'll get into that.
As someone in their 30s watching, well, I'm not 30 yet, but as someone going into their 30s, watching someone in their 50s not let media changing be the reason they stopped doing that, to me is inspiring. And so that's why I wanted to tell your story, because it's a unique one. It's got longevity to it. And when I thought about it, I said to you, dude, you've spent all these years telling everybody else's story. Have you ever told your own? And you were like, no. I was like, well, we should do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I was like, oh man, if you had brought that up to me when I was in my 30s, I'd be like, oh yeah, man, it's a great chance to talk about who I am. And
sure.
Now it's more like, oh geez, it feels weird. Because I think I am genuinely interested in people's stories, whether they're hunters or not.
Sure.
I love going to lunch with people. I love, how in the world did you get into being a yacht builder? I'd love knowing that. The human story to me is just awesome. And it kind of forced me to sit back, because one of the things and I guess we'll get into it, you asked me, how have I managed to reinvent myself? I don't know if that's the perfect word, but how have I stayed, regardless of the ways media has changed?
You've adapted to it.
I've adapted. How have I done that and stayed relevant? And I'm like, boy, I know I have had some intentions, but it made me sit back and think a little bit about, I almost would say, a playbook, not like an algorithm where if you do this, 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 and this, the outcome is going to be this, because that's what an algorithm is. An algorithm is not numbers. People don't understand that. It can be numbers, but an algorithm is basically, in its purest definition, it is a system of processes that generate a hopeful outcome. Yeah. It tends to steer an outcome. And,
sure.
And so, yeah, it's a little bit different putting the camera on me right now, but we'll talk about it.
I think something you should keep in your mind too, and maybe we'll get to it at some point in the middle or the end. I think the impressive part that I didn't bring up in person yet, that I just thought of, is you probably had a thought in your head of what you wanted to do and what you wanted it to look like. Like, that's what dreamers do. You envision this perfect idea of, like, if I could have it my way.
A blurry dream. But
a blurry dream, sure. And I think the impressive part is, so many times, if anyone is listening that has chased a dream or had a plan, it doesn't go that way. Yeah. You had it in your head. It never does.
That's right. Ever.
And you can choose in that moment when it doesn't to let it die right there because it didn't fit the dream that you built up in your head. Mm-hmm. Or you can accept that God still put this dream on my heart. I've just got to find a different road to go down, because yes, you've built a professional career in outdoors media, specifically reaching men who need to be told the truth. but you've kind of always done it your way. And by that, I mean, I need to change that real quick, because I don't mean your way as in the plan that you might have built in your head, but you could take fill in the blank professional hunter and sit next to you, and y'all's paths are not the same.
They're not, no.
Like you went down a completely different professional career path.
David Hale one time told me, we were sitting in the woods, for all of you that don't know who David Hale is, that hurts my heart. It would be like saying you've never heard of, Michael Jordan. But David Hale one time said, we were talking about people being professional turkey callers. He said, the only professional is the hen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like, we're all just amateurs, but there's no such thing as a professional hunter, because you're just a well-seasoned amateur, even if you're getting paid.
Yeah. And for the
they
analogy,
win more than you do.
Even for myself as an artist, everyone in this town in Nashville says this, there is no one path to success here.
That's right.
You cannot replicate that. 100%. And I think you've actually lived that same story out in a different way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about, how did you get into the world of outdoors media, and where did that start for you?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. I was first published as a writer, and that was in high school, actually. Now, I didn't get paid for that, of course, but I wrote, I had this teacher. It's a really cool story of permission. Sometimes, Jasper, people just need permission. Like I learned that even in all the different forms of ministry that I've had. Sometimes you need to give. It's weird, but sometimes if you're a spiritual leader in their church or even in their family, you need to give people permission to move on. You need to give them permission to stop grieving. It's okay. You know. Well, in a positive way, I was on the yearbook staff, and there was a lady named Sylvia Garner, and she was a teacher. And I've actually told her this, and we've had some really good, she didn't know. Her husband was a man named Kelton Garner, and he was one of the assistant principals at my school, high school. And Miss Garner was over the yearbook staff, and I was a sports writer and just writing for the yearbook. Well, she was very good. Our yearbook won like state awards every year.
That's cool.
We were like the yearbooks.
Yeah.
I mean, we had buddy, she took it to the nines, and we literally won state awards as a staff all the time. So it was kind of cool. I didn't realize how cool that was to get a little older.
Mm-hmm.
But one day she walks in and she says, hey, now you got to remember, I'm a golfer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I played all the sports, but I kind of was focusing on golf more than anything. And she walks in one day and she says, hey, you won second in the state. And I said, for what, Miss Garner? For writing. I said, now, you got to remember, I'm a golfer. And I said, but I didn't go to a writing tournament. I mean, I think you go tee it up, like sharpen your pencil, like take the cap off the pen. It's right. You got a tee time and you start writing. And she's like, no, honey, you won second in the state. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand. I mean, I'm literally, she may as well have been speaking Mandarin to me. And she said, I said, I mean, what do you mean? I won a second in the whole state. She said, there was no writing tournament, honey. She said, I'll never forget that. There was no writing tournament, honey. I submitted your work for you.
That's a great teacher, by the way.
That is a world-class teacher. She didn't even tell me. She said, I submitted your work and you won second in the states for sports writing. And she said, you can write, son. And I went, I said, I can? She said, yes, you can. And I was like, all right, dadgummit. I mean, I guess I can. I mean, I didn't know I could write. But she saw something in me, and I mean, it was just special.
Just for a side note, isn't that amazing that is sometimes all it takes is for someone outside of your immediate circle, just one person that's not your parents, because they're going to lie to you and tell you you're good.
They're always going to tell you you're awesome.
Someone who's not related to you or your best friend, just takes one person to go, I think you could actually do this, and you can.
And what's interesting too is, had that not happened, there would have been no Sportsman's Bible, most likely. There would have been no Man Minute book that still can be bought in Walmart today. None of that. She started and she didn't even hunt. She started the journey.
I'm going to give you the same thing, and this isn't about me, but I haven't thought about this, and I've never told you this. The only reason I ever even knew about Nashville or MTSU or songwriter or anything was when I was done with sports. My parents were like, "You've got to do something. Join show choir," because that's what my sister was in, and I was like,
Yeah.
"I am not joining show choir."
How about no,
She
Mom?
said, "Just go try out." So I went to the choir teacher, and I was like, "Okay, I'm here for whatever this is." She goes, "Can you sight read?" "Nope." "Can you read music at all?" "Nope." "You ever been in choir?" "Nope." She's like, "Okay." Goes over there to the keyboard. She's like, "I just want you to match the notes that I'm playing on the keys." I can assure you I did not. And I showed up when they posted the thing on the wall, and she put me in. Like, "You made it." I was the only person in there that had never been in choir before.
Wow.
And I asked her when I graduated, like, "Why did you do that?" She said, "Because I knew you were going to go down a path that for music, and it had nothing to do with this choir class. I just needed you to know that you could go down it."
Yeah, she started you.
I'm sure there were people in that class that were like, why is I've
that
been in
guy?
choir since I was 6.
Yeah.
This dude didn't meet one requirement.
We know why Erica's in there.
Yes.
We don't know why he is.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I got started writing, and that morphed into I had some print published, and then when in college I wrote an article about my dad and hunting, and it was called "Always Watch the Sunrise Sun." And it came from a farm we used to hunt. I killed my first 23 deer there. Not that I'm keeping count, but my first 23 deer came off this farm, and it was so special. The day that the farm changed hands and couldn't hunt it anymore, I was out of seminary and I cried. I literally cried. And I didn't weep, but I cried. Because it was closing a chapter that I would have probably made a deal with landowner too. I'll never shoot another deer here ever if you'll just let me hunt it. I will never shoot another deer. Just let me come out here and hunt, and I will not shoot a deer. I won't even bring bullets. But I met my daddy at the creek, and Daddy said, "Did you see the sunrise this morning?" I said, "No." It was a real dry creek bed, rarely had water, a little washout creek that ran through the middle of the property, and we'd always meet at the creek bed. "Did you watch sunrise this morning?" "No, Dad." He said, "Oh man, it was amazing." And I said, "Did you see any deer?" Yeah, I think I saw one." And I was just like about half angry, because I'm like, "Daddy, we got up at 4 a.m. to hunt, Dad." And I said, "No, I didn't." And he just said, not condemningly, he just said, "Always watch the sunrise sun. There's more to it than what you see." And that's all he said. And I never forgot that. So I ended up writing an article about that, and that got published in a regional journal. I'm like, dang, that's twice I've been published. That's pretty cool. And if you've been published at all, you can say I've been published. I mean, you're not lying. So I got involved with a magazine that needed content. We would have called it Content Writer now, but back then it was just, I said, "Hey, listen, you have a new regional magazine." I was in Kroger, and I picked up this new magazine that was like a Southeast, like think of like Field and Stream, but just for the Southeast. I knew where to look. I looked on the inside of the front cover, got their phone number, called them up. "Hey, do you need writers?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, a lot, but we don't have a lot of money." I said, "I don't care. I'll send you articles." So I sent him it was a hunting article, but it had a faith element, and had a verse of scripture. And
So the incorporating faith into your outdoor media started pretty much immediately.
Okay. Because I always wanted to find a way to move the kingdom forward. I mean, what's the point of just writing to write?
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And so this guy calls me back, and I don't even remember his name. This is like late 90s. He said, "Hey, we're getting phone calls about that article you wrote." I'm like, "Oh, really?" He said, "Can you write some more?" "Yeah." He said, "I'll pay you." I'm like, "Well, okay, whatever." So I wrote probably 5 or 6 for him. And
what year do you think was this?
99.
What do you think he paid you for those articles back then?
Oh Lord, it was for each article. Less than $100, easy, less than $100. Like total, I might have made $150.
That's funny.
But here's what's funny: you do have to know how to talk to people, right?
Yeah.
So I went to a major Christian publisher, and I said, "Hey, I'm a published writer, and I do get paid sometimes. I didn't tell him how much,
Yeah,
but
sure. No one needs to know that.
I had been paid. It wasn't lying.
Yeah, I mean, technically, you're a professional writer.
At that point,
by the definition,
do
you
you
are.
get paid to write? Well, then you're a professional.
Yeah.
And so, so that just kind of started the ball rolling, and that, so and I think that, Jasper, I think that is what made me, I don't know how good of a cinematographer I am. I don't know. How do you measure that? You're going to measure that against Steven Spielberg? You're going to measure that? I mean, how are you going to measure that? I mean, it's like nobody measures their golf game against Phil Mickelson. You measure it against your buddies that you can beat. You know. So I don't know how to measure that, but whatever level of talent I have as a writer, as a photographer, as a producer, and filmmaker, all of it, one of my unfair advantages. I think most people have an unfair advantage if they just will sit back and you're not, without being prideful. If you think, okay, what did God give me? Where am I positively out of round? Mm-hmm. I'm positively abnormal. Where? And I think what makes me different from most cinematographers is I tell good stories.
I couldn't agree more. I think, I've told you this, but everyone who I know personally who's watched Wild and Kingdom, that's from my parents to Sydney's parents to my friends, and including myself, before we even did Wild and Kingdom, that's what sets your media apart. Your background in writing allows you to also narrate and tell a story very well, like better than anybody else. And in my generation, younger than me, that's a dead thing.
It is dead.
It doesn't exist. And
it's tragically dead. No, it is.
That form of telling a story doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's what makes, and I'm not even saying this biasly for working here. I'm just saying it's what makes our videos different. Because like even when you did my Mossberg video and told my story, and that was a much shorter version of the story.
Yeah. We'll put that in the show notes. It's a cool video.
It was
Jasper's first turkey.
Just done so well and poetically, and it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I had a bunch of interns one time. There's an Instagram platform called Campus Waterfowl. Ducks Unlimited owns it now. I started that, and I started it because I had told Mossberg, I said, we have to reach the next generation, and the hunting industry always seems to undervalue that they think most 20-somethings, 20, 25 years old, they don't have a lot of purchasing power. I said, it's just not true. But I mean, even if it's their daddy's money, who cares?
It's the first time in their life that they have freedom of purchasing power. They make their own decisions.
And when you're 18 to 20 years old, your daddy may be a Browning guy or a Winchester guy or a Marlin guy or a Mossberg guy, a Beretta guy, but you are trying to figure out what you like. Mm-hmm. And so I said, why don't we let me get some interns. So I didn't tell Mossberg. I created an Instagram platform as a ghost platform, as a way to leverage Mossberg against young adults in a good way, but only for waterfowl hunters. I got 3 interns. They grew that platform like crazy. Mossberg saw it, went crazy, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I'm like, I told y'all that we can do this. Well, then we started really developing that. We were at like 70,000 collegiate waterfowl hunters, not deer hunters, not smallmouth fishermen, not bass fishermen, collegiate waterfowl hunters, and end up selling that to my interns, and then they sold it to Ducks Unlimited, and it still exists today, and I think that it's just one of those things. My point in saying that is, but it all goes back to storytelling. But here's why I brought that up.
Yeah,
I brought that up because I told Derek and I told Wesley, you don't have to be Hemingway. I'll never forget this conversation. I said, boys, listen, you don't have to be Hemingway, but I'm telling you, by the time you hit your mid-20s, your generation has grown up on a phone, and they don't know how to tell a story. And a story doesn't have to be 1,000 words. It can be 30 words. But if you will learn how to write and tell a story, your organization will love you for it, because nobody knows how to write anymore. They can't argue on paper. They're going to come to you and say, hey, man, we have this proposal to give to this. Will you write it? Because you write. It's one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me in my life as in outdoor media was the day that two of the coolest things. The day that Derek called me and said, "Hey, Jason, Ducks Unlimited wants to buy campus waterfowl." I'm like, holy cow, Derek, how cool is that? That was cool. Derek still works for them to this day. The other thing was when Wesley called me about 3 or 4 years ago.
And these were the two people that were
the first two interns.
Yeah.
And he said, "Jason, you always pushed me to write and tell a story. And I want you to know today I left my full-time job because I've replaced my salary as a writer." And I'm like, holy cow, Wesley. I love him so much, and Derek too. And so telling a story can lead to places, especially when there's a vacuum, because your generation, as a whole, not everyone. That's why I love country music artists, because they do understand the power of story.
100%.
So many people today in your generation, they want to put the camera on themselves. We live in a selfie generation where everything's about you, me, selfie. The only person that should be at the center of the story is Jesus. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that to sound hyper, spiritual. Jesus is at the center of the story. So we've built these digital shrines to ourselves, and we think it's normal. When the Apostle Paul said, in the last days, people will be lovers of self.
Mm-hmm.
Think about selfie. So that's why I love telling people stories, because I see God in their story.
Yeah.
And I think that's fun. Anything I do, I don't want to do it without the kingdom flair, because I don't see the point.
There's no point.
In Revelation 1:6, we're told we're a kingdom of priests. That's why we had Jesse Reeves on the show, because Jesse and I share that so much, that we are sent into the world as priests, and that's what every person is. And so to get back on track, that's how I got started as a writer, and I see so many young filmmakers today that their cinematography is amazing. Their drone shots are amazing. Their edits are just, literally stunning.
It's the best editing right now in this timeline of life. We are
the best we've
sitting
ever
with
been.
the best editors that have ever existed
At the lowest cost, at the lowest price
Very
point.
true.
You and I shot that Montana episode on a drone and a phone.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. We shot it on a drone. Go back and look at Unexpected. If any of you are watching, watch that video. It's got like 80-something thousand views right now. But we shot it on a phone, and yet told a story with it. You can do it cheaply now, but I see all these young guys with cinematography, but they don't have a story loop.
Dude, if someone like one of those dudes that are out there right now that does that really well could implement storytelling on top of it,
buddy,
take it to the house, buddy.
Take it to the house.
Yeah. So
that's how I got moving.
You got moving in it, and a lot of things have happened. I mean, and we could sit here and talk for 4 hours about all the things, but that ended up getting you the campus waterfowl thing, which was huge.
And that was well after it started with writing became books.
Yes.
So we probably should tell that, because men don't read. Mm-hmm. There's a reason they call it Sports Illustrated. Right? We want the pictures. Now, a lot of executives read and a lot of leaders read, but by far and large, men just do not read. And I had written a book called The Heart of a Sportsman, and it was just a tradecraft book. A lot of pictures. I haven't even read it in 20-something years. It's probably really poor writing, but the Christian market needed a gift book. It was something you would stick in a stocking, or on a small gift, coffee table book. That led to a Bible, and that's really what changed. There was a thing at the time where they were trying to do concept Bibles. So, like, for instance, you could do a policeman's Bible, and it was a way to get the Word of God into people's hands. And
it's really smart.
Yeah, so I was the executive editor on a sportsman's Bible, and that's where I think of a Bible that's clad in camo and it's got a bunch of tips and strategies in the back, and that's what we did. That thing had a long shelf life. It had a long shelf life. And that led to more books and led to a Bible with Zondervan called the NIV Outdoorsman Bible, which that's how I met you. Mm-hmm. I was speaking at Sony, and I look across and there's this dude, and I'm like, he's holding one of the Bibles I did. And it happens so often that I see in a crowd somebody holding that Bible. and it's really weird. I remember this dad one time came up to me at the end of this conference, and he said, I was preaching at a church. He said, my son was, he's a 8-year-old kid, so he's not paying attention, but he's got my Bible, and that Bible has devotionals and full color pictures. And it was really, Zondervan did a great job with that. And he's flipping through and he sees your picture and he sees you on the stage, and he looks down at your picture and he sees you on the stage, and he turns to me and goes, Dad, that guy is in the Bible. He's in the Bible. And he said, as a dad, I'm trying to say, well, son, he's not really.
Yeah.
He's like, well, not really, son. He's like, no,
right
Dad,
here.
he is I'm looking at it. That guy is in the Bible. We're watching a Bible guy right now. It was hilarious.
That's pretty good.
It was hilarious, dude. Oh man. So yeah, but nonetheless, that's how it got started. Yeah. And that morphed into TV, and eventually you have to, if you want to share the gospel with men, you better show it. And so I had a few runs with television.
You did DVDs with your dad?
So me and my dad, DVDs were first. And what we did with DVDs were churches needed a way to give Father's Day gifts. Well, that was in the DVD days. So we produced, the first DVD we ever did was called My Dad Can Beat Up Your Dad. And churches would buy it in bulk, and they would give it to every man there. And it was a story of reconciliation. Now, me and my dad did not need to reconcile. We were showing, because we had a great relationship, we were showing what a reconciled, like when you and your father are close, like what that looks like, because Daddy had to reconcile his alcoholism and all that. And so churches gave that out by the thousands and thousands all across the country. It was such a cool job. It was such a cool project. Eventually that became the Me and Dad TV show, and that ran for a year on DirecTV, and it made no money. So TV is super expensive, but we were able to provide a show, and then that was cool. I learned a lot doing that one. From there, and I'm fast tracking it now, but from there that went to Sportsman Channel. I had a show called Spring Chronicles, and I get this phone call one day that I just couldn't believe Nico was telling me this. He said, hey, I just want you to know your turkey show is the #1 driver on sportsmanchannel.com. I'm like, what is that? What are you talking about? He said, it's the most watched thing we do. I'm like, and these are his words, not mine. He said, you're more than Sarah Palin, more than Ted Nugent. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, it's outperforming all of those. And I'm like, me? I don't understand that. And if you looked at their cinematography, it was way better. But I told a story. And my stories led to turkey tips. Mossberg saw that, asked me to do it just for them, and there we go.
First of all, just awesome. Awesome just in navigating the waters of that whole thing. Because, I mean, what year did Mossberg become a real opportunity for you?
Around 2015.
So there was a lot of years in between when you first started writing outdoor articles until you were like, I have a thing that's actually paying me and I'm doing the thing.
Money came slowly.
So that's kind of what I wanted to get to with those other 2 points that I brought up in the beginning, which there's really 2, but they fit hand in hand. One is that kind of, it's not always the dream scenario you think it's going to end up being.
That's right. It never is.
It never is.
In fact, in the Oklahoma hunt that we're showing, I talk about, you and I talked about this on the road there. I said, we're going to take what the hunt gives us. And the hunt gave us just a mainframe 8-pointer, but it might not have given us anything. And I really didn't care.
Yep.
I really didn't care.
You have to be along for the ride.
You have to.
Because something that I've learned, and you could probably say the same, is, and it's you can say it, but your path still worked out in that world. But I bet if you really sat down and thought about it, and I'm sure you have, you would probably say to other people, it's really all the other things that happen along the way. Because I think about that for myself now I've had some awesome moments in chasing this country music dream or songwriting dream. But those aren't even the ones that I think about at all.
Right.
If I wouldn't have moved up here, I never work with Red Bull. I never meet my girlfriend.
Yeah.
I never meet my best friends. I never meet you. all the things that I never planned on happening, which are now the most important things that have ever happened, have nothing to do with the reason I originally moved up here.
What you're talking about is positioning.
Yeah.
And here's what I've learned. And I would say this to anybody, no matter, they may be listening to this. You know, we have a lot of people that listen to this podcast that aren't hunters. Well, you're interested in things. What I would say to you is, if you want to do something, you have to put yourself in an environment where you can thrive in that world.
Yes.
And so my cousin, who edited a lot of Hollywood stuff for decades, he said, nobody would even talk to me. And if they did pick up the phone, they said, when you move here, call me.
Yes.
There's a reason, because I believe that creativity births creativity. I believe opportunity births opportunity. Why do people that you see that are super successful, why do they have opportunities? Because they're around people that are alive, and they're doing some of the same things. And so the biggest mistake that so many young dudes were making in the late 90s and early 2000s, and they still make it to this day, I see it happen all the time. They want outdoor companies to give them money, and like, that's not going to happen. You have to build a tribe. Mm-hmm. You have to build an authority. You have to build the numbers, and if you do that, they will come.
It is a numbers game.
It's
a numbers game, and that requires time.
Yeah, Greg Norman was one of the greatest golfers that's ever lived, and people always used to talk about him choking. Well, no. Greg Norman had a long history of, I think he had won maybe second to Tiger Woods, maybe at the time, maybe the most international victories. The dude won hundreds of literally global tournaments and regional tournaments that were professional. But there were times in major tournaments, like Larry Mize holed out like from the fairway to beat him. He had the Masters locked up. Mize had to hit it in the hole from like 50 yards, and he did. He couldn't do that 1,000 times over. He did it once. Robert Gamez did it one time from 150 yards out at TBC Sawgrass. I mean, the guy was getting beat by people. The best shot of their life to beat him. And Phil Mickelson came to his defense one time, and he said, what y'all don't realize about Greg Norman is he's always in a position to win. That's how good he is. He's never more than a stroke or so off the lead. So you notice him losing because he's always there. We're rarely there. He's always there. And that's how good he is. And I think positioning is, you have to put yourself in an arena where you can win.
I agree. And let's move on to the second point of that, which is what inspired me to want to really tell the story to begin with. Not just, like we said in the beginning, one was because it's unique, but the other one is the innovating part. Mm-hmm. Like, anyone who's in a career for a long time has to figure out how to stay there, because especially in media, it seems like for a while, it was every 5 to 10 year period, media drastically changed. But now media is changing daily.
Literally daily.
And so the inspiring part for me was watching someone who's in their 50s adapt to that. And it's not to say, 50's old, but there's plenty of people who are in their 50s that's like, I've done it this way for so long. This is what worked for me. I refuse to change it. It doesn't even have to be 50. You could be 30 and started doing something when you're 15 and be like, I swung the baseball bat differently than kids swing the baseball bat today. Yeah. I'm never going to swing that way.
If you're 30 years old, a 15-year-old is looking at you like you're old.
100%.
They really are.
It's not about the age. It's not about the number. It's more so the time you've spent doing one niche thing and how much the way that gets exported has changed.
Right. The way you ship it.
And so why do you think it is that you've constantly been able to not let that bother you, and you jump into deep ends of pools that you've never swam in?
Yeah, like right now I'm deep in AI. And you and I talk about it all the time. We're trying to figure out how AI is working. And here's the short answer. Nobody knows. Mm-hmm. It's still
the Wild West.
It is, as you said, www used to stand for the World Wide Web. Now it stands for the Wild Wild West. And anybody that's into that will tell you the same thing. If you're, no matter what industry you're in, AI is affecting your industry, but there are so many different people that are using AI in ways that don't even make sense that you could employ, and it won't work for you. Mm-hmm. AI is evolving at speeds we can't even fathom right now. So I'm trying to learn that because, again, I think there's a way. You and I are working on a project. Could we make the Bible relevant to guys that don't listen to it? And we're working on a project right now that we'll reveal one day here soon, actually really soon. So that we're using AI to do that. So I think Henry Ford. I kept my phone on my leg here because Henry Ford said something. He said, "Anyone who stops learning is old. Doesn't matter. Anyone who stops learning is old. Whether at 20 or 80, anyone who keeps learning stays young." And I think that it was Mark Twain. I think he said, "Continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection." And it's continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. And you asked me what's kept me innovating. I'll tell you something that I think, to me, is the most powerful quote, or I wouldn't even call it a quote. I would call it knowledge. The most powerful thing I've ever seen outside of Scripture, like the most true thing I've ever seen outside of Scripture. It came from a speech that Teddy Roosevelt gave, literally in the early 1900s or whenever he was president. It was a long time ago, way more than 100 years ago. But it's referred to as the man in the arena.
Yeah,
and
it's great.
For those of you that don't know it, it goes something like this. And I pretty much memorized most of it, but I'm not going to get it 100% right. But he says that it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled. The credit actually goes to the man in the arena whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly and errs again and again and stumbles. And he talks about in that speech, he said that he knows the triumph of high achievement and he knows failure. But the line that always gets me is when he says, "So at least his place will never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory or defeat." And that hangs in the duck lodge that we have, because if anything's kept me going, it is risk taking. I think as you age, and I don't mean hit 50, you start getting human nature, even in your 20s or your 30s. I see it in my teenage sons. We are afraid as humans to take risk. If you listen to PhD researchers that are psychologists and neurosurgeons, they will tell you that our brain is wired for survival.
Yes.
It is. And so we are naturally risk averse literally by neurology. If you look at anybody that ever did anything, like you got in a truck and drove up here from Alabama, Ray Fulcher, I've always been impressed that Ray, I was just texting with him yesterday. If y'all don't know who Ray Fulcher is, you should Google him. He's written.
Yeah, you probably know who he is and don't know.
Yeah,
that
you sung
his
his songs on the radio. If you sung a Luke Combs song, you sung Ray Fulcher. I love Ray so much. But Ray can literally tell you the day that he moved to Nashville from Georgia, because it's traumatic. And what I mean by that, it was in May. I remember he can tell you it was May, whatever year. And Ray can tell you, because when I say traumatic, it means I am pushing all my chips to the table and I don't know how this ends.
Yeah.
And I don't know how this ends. And where Ray Fulcher would be, where would he be? Where would Cole Taylor be? Cole's written a lot of number one songs. He drops out of college with a semester left to graduate because he knew that he was supposed to be a songwriter. And here's the crazy thing. His daddy was okay with it. He was like, "No, son, it's all right." Dude, that's a dad. I mean, all your chips go to the middle. So you have to be willing not to be impulsive or stupid. Proverbs talks a lot about, the fool mindset. But you have to be willing to explore, because if you're not in the arena, then you're
not even playing the game.
You're not even playing the game. So you have to be willing to do that.
I agree. I can't say that any better myself. I don't remember what it was that I said when I was working on some of the audio for the the show for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It was about you. And I said, there's something to be said about a man who's willing to take that leap, take that risk, because it forces a man to say, this is scary. I have no idea how to do this. I've never done this.
Never done it. Yeah.
Don't know what's going to come from this. But at the same time, it is those exact emotions that make it so exciting and worth taking.
It's how you stay in the game when so many don't.
I was talking to somebody, and this is not my quote by any means. Actually, I was going to put this in the liners. I ended up not, because I couldn't find the original person who said it, but it's somewhere way down the line. But people in Nashville say it a lot in writer's room is when someone says, I'm scared, the response is, well, then do it scared.
Yeah.
And ever since I heard that, I thought about my life.
Scared and do it anyway.
Yeah, I've thought about my life, of all the life-changing moments that I've made. I was scared to do every single one of them. There wasn't one that I wasn't scared to do. I was scared to move up here. I was scared to move back home. I was scared to move back up here. I've been scared to do everything. I'm scared to put out vulnerable songs. I'm scared to stand on stage and sing in front of X amount of people. I've just done it scared.
Yeah.
Versus being like, I'm scared, I'm not going to do that because I'm scared. I'm like, I'm scared and I'm just going to do it scared.
I've had people ask me, I've quit counting the number of people, grown, middle-aged, old, young dudes at National Wild Turkey Federation, or you name it. I run into people all the time. How did you get to doing what you do? And my answer is always, I just started. Henry Ford, again, to quote him again, he had some pretty famous things, but I love one of his quotes: what I'm doing is better than what you're talking about.
Yes, I love that.
and we go back to that Mark Twain thing. He said, what he said about consistency is better than perfection, and you just have to consistently keep doing it.
Totally.
Yeah.
What would you tell someone, no matter the age, if they are in that position, not saying that they're wanting to be a professional hunter or whatever, but that they have something that they think God put on their heart to do, and they haven't taken the leap?
I would say, well, you do have to be called to it. You asked me one time, Jason, you said, how many, I don't know when we were talking about, but I remember you asking me how many guys, that started doing what you're doing are still around. Like, I think in the world of songwriting, y'all call it a class. Mm-hmm. How does that work?
So like, the class is just the group of boys you come up with in the town. Like we moved here in 2016. We started writing together. We were in the same little
like Luke Bryan and Jason Aldean were in the same class.
Yeah, meaning like we moved up here and we were nobodies, and we both kind of rose to our success together. Even if that doesn't even mean you're best friends in your class. Yeah. It's just like Tyler and I, as of right now, would be in the same class. But there was a point in time where he was in the class probably above me.
Yeah.
But like right now, with just where we're at, me, him, Jordan Rowe, Harrison Hackett, we're all kind of like
in this. You kind of arrived at Nashville at the same time.
We arrived at the same time. The things that are happening in our lives seem to be happening at the same time for each other.
So if you look at that same idea, there were a lot of dudes doing outdoor ministry efforts, I would say. I can only think of maybe now. Look, I want to preface this by saying, I'm just scanning my memory. I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, I'm the one that brought it up to you thinking the same thing. So it's not just a you fault.
I can only think of me and maybe one other. Maybe. And I don't know if he's still in the game. I know his website's still up with some of the things he's got, but actively doing it, I don't really know. But people phase out. So you have to be called to it. And it has to be something that's about the kingdom of God. Because here's the thing about the kingdom of God. I was reading this week. Jesus said something, man, it hit home with me. And I've read that we've all, if you're in the Lord, you've read this before. There's this thing in the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus is talking about money. And he walks right over into that whole famous passage of you can't serve God and money. And he says, consider the birds of the air, the lilies of the field. And, Solomon wasn't even dressed up as good as God made a flower. Like a flower outranks Solomon's splendor, right? And he says,
the richest man.
Yeah, when you do these things, he says, even the pagans do these things, which means it's another way of saying when you worry about money, you're living as if God doesn't. You're living as if God doesn't live. The pagans were. You're different than pagans. You're different than, you have a heavenly Father who knows. He said, and so then that famous phrase, seek first the kingdom of God and everything else will be provided. And boy, that was a narrative for me that is so, you and I have said this a lot, Jasper. I swear, if God came to me and said, listen, and really he did right there in Matthew, so I guess he's already done it. Like, hey, God, if you'll just pay the salary, I'll do the work. I don't even care if I know this sounds weird to so many people. I don't care about the money. I have to think about the money, put it that way. I have to think about the money. I have a wife and I have 2 boys, and I do enjoy buying them things and paying the light bill. Those are all good. I promise you it matters to them.
Yeah.
I just want to do the work.
Same.
I just want to do the work. I want to do the work of the kingdom in the arena that I was called to be in, and that is men and the outdoorsmen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have, we good on time for you?
We're good on time.
Unless you got another topic you want to move into, I got to kind of pivot here. It's not a pivot. It's just,
I'm going to talk about, remind me to talk about, I did put, because you kind of asked me to, what are some ways that I've stayed relevant? And I do have some ways. So we'll get to that. No, but keep going.
I want to talk a little bit about, for anyone listening, this will tie into what I said at the beginning about dream doesn't always look the way you fully envisioned it. You and I can relate on this to so many levels. And I think it's important for people to hear because it's something that bothered me for a long time. It doesn't bother me anymore. I'm actually very proud of it and I'm thankful for it. When I originally asked you the question that you just brought up about how many people do you think are left in the world that you're in, and that's why I thought it was impressive that you have survived that, I wasn't even asking about it being Christian or faith-based outdoors. Mm-hmm. I really just meant hunting media professional.
Okay.
And I don't know all the people that were in your class. I only brought this up in the truck that day because I heard you mention before that you were on some of the early hunts with someone like Waddell when y'all were both young, right?
Oh, no, I wasn't with Waddell. No, I had done some stuff at one time with Realtree.
Okay,
let me back up. I was on a hunt with them.
That's what I meant.
I was in their circle a little bit.
Right, that's what I meant. And
but I wasn't on there.
Y'all were in the same age group, whatever.
Yeah, he's a little younger than me.
Take it as a class again. Not that y'all were working together or anything like that.
No, his level of stardom
but
outpaced anything I've ever done.
That's where I'm going with it, though. That's the point that I want to paint here. Let's just say y'all start of doing this started around the same time. Mm-hmm. He's had a very long-lasting career.
Oh, yeah, very great one.
You have as well. Y'all's careers look completely different.
Yeah.
Your path was different. You actually had a full-time job the whole time you were doing this for the most part. Mm-hmm. I, too, have had a full-time job the whole time I've been chasing the dream. Mm-hmm. But the majority of the things that I wanted to come from my dream still happened. I never painted the picture in my head at 15 that, I'll have a full-time job while I'm chasing songs. I never wanted that. And it bothered me at the beginning of my songwriting career because everyone around me, they just had a pub deal. They just got to do the thing full-time. And I set that as a comparison bar that, I'm not like that. And what's crazy is,
it was like you were ashamed of the fact that you had to work for Red Bull.
And this doesn't matter at all when I say this. I was making triple what they were making, and it was still bothering me that their full-time job.
Because comparison, back to Teddy Roosevelt, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes, and now I'm in a completely different spot, and I would not change that for the world. You've even heard me say, dude, if I sign a pub deal, I'm still keeping my job for as long as I can.
Yeah.
And there's a whole nother reason list world of conversation why, but my point is, those are the things that I was referencing earlier to say, you could have quit.
Oh, yeah.
When you said, man, I have to have a full-time job to fund my career.
Or to use your example, look at Michael Waddell. I'm nowhere. Like Michael
Waddell, Stephen Reed, their full-time job is the thing.
Yeah, but what people also don't realize too is they were working. Michael was working as a cameraman. He had a full-time job too. It just happened to be with Realtree.
Yes.
Stephen Ranella was writing books. It just evolved over time. There were seasons of plenty and seasons of not so plenty.
Right.
I've told this to so many young dudes. If you knew the number of people that made a full-time living hosting a show, you could about hold them in one hand. Like it just
maybe half of a hand.
Yeah, it's not what you think. They make their money somewhere else, or they run a company and they're using the show as the marketing vehicle, but they're actually running a company.
Yeah.
You know, they may have a bait caster, or they have some product.
Right.
You know, Will Primos figured that out. Will is, I think the world of Will, but I think, and I've stayed in his house, but I never have asked Will this, but I can tell you most likely how he was thinking. Hey, we can spend $1 million a year giving it to Sports Illustrated, Outdoor Life and Field and Stream, and we can sponsor all these shows, or we can have our own show and sponsor ourselves.
Yes.
And why not? So they're using, in those days, in the late 90s, early 2000s, they were using outdoor television as really a 28-minute and 30-second, a 28:30 as we called it, a 28:30 infomercial. Mm-hmm. It just happened they were shooting elk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think it's important to call out, because I think so many people think that if you know, if the dream isn't the full-time bill payer, I didn't make it, or I'm not successful.
Yes, that's a great point. Because what we have is in our mind, this is how it's supposed to look. And if you do that to yourself, you're going to lose.
I would have lost infinitely.
Yeah, but you know, the first time that I ever really sat down with you, we went to, of all places, Whole Foods. Like, we don't fit there, you and me.
That was my first time ever going there.
Yeah, but I knew they had a salad bar, and it wasn't far from Music Row.
Yeah.
I said, man, I don't eat around here a lot with all the traffic. I said, let's go to Whole Foods because they got some decently healthy food. So we went and sat down. And you were really struggling with the fact that you said, Jason, I'll never forget this. You said, I don't want people to know that I work for Red Bull. And I said, the fact that you work for Red Bull is a game changer because you have freedom. Mm-hmm. You were in your mid-20s with like 15 direct reports reporting to you. Red Bull doesn't give that away. That's why I tell people all the time that people don't realize how smart you are in marketing, and if they don't know you, they don't know you. If they don't know you, They don't realize you worked for one of the most global brands in the world as a collegiate ambassador, brand manager for a section of their work, and that was teaching you there again. You were learning more ways to be better, and they were paying you for it. And I think that when you start comparing your process up the mountain to somebody else's, you're gonna lose. But here's what people don't know about the hunting industry. I could rattle off a list of names right now of people that you've watched on television. And if you knew the backstory of their lives, and if you knew the carnage in their lives, you would want nothing to do with it. I mean, I'm telling you, it's tragic.
We won't say the name, but we listened to a podcast on the way back from Oklahoma of a very successful outdoorsman who we probably all at some point are now looked up to or look up to, or just are impressed by him. And he said something along the lines of, I've built a massive career, but I've missed half my kid's life.
Half. And I'm like, we stopped the radio, and for the next hour, we talked about that. Like, what is it? There is no way in this world that is a loss.
It's not the dream.
It's a kingdom loss. And so, so but you do have to be willing to morph, and you have to be willing to adjust and be agile. And that was where you asked me what's kept me doing that. I think because at the end of the day, here's what I want to see happen. I know that men that even with Wild and Kingdom, what we do right here with Wild and Kingdom, the type of men that need to hear the gospel and biblical truth, they're not coming to churches. By far and large, they're not. You may be listening to this in podcast land, and you might go to a church, but I'm telling you, that's why we say all the time, share this. It's not because we think the content's so amazing. I'm telling you, if you are listening or if you're watching one of our videos and one of our featured films, text it to people that don't know Jesus, that hunt. Yeah. Because they're not good. We call it being a digital missionary. Yeah. We really do mean that. We're not trying to get you to help us move up the rankings. That's not the point. The point is we have this gospel tool, And if we're hunters, you can text it a link. Hey, dude, you should watch this. Hey, dude, you should listen to this. They talked about some of that stuff you've been wrestling with.
Yeah.
It puts a gospel tool in your hands if you'll use it.
I agree. I'd say go as far as to send it to your Christian buddies and I'm not going to sit here.
Don't assume they're Christian.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and knock what I'm about to say, whether it's completely right or wrong. I've had my opinions about this, and they've changed over time. But I'm not naive to the fact that even Christian hunters don't go to church on Sunday because it's the only day of the week they can get in a tree stand.
Yeah, exactly. But if you can put the gospel in their language,
that's what I'm saying.
That'll make sense. And I think
something they can listen to on the way to.
I think for me, one of the big things I had to. You ask about ways that I.
How have you adapted?
Yeah, I think the first is grow your mind. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with your heart, your soul, your inner will, and your mind. You have to learn to take on the mind of Christ. And so strategy is part of that. And so I don't want to be, man, we had some pretty good runs with DVDs, but I'd be like an 80s one-hit wonder still trying to play state fairs if it was about DVDs.
You'd be broke.
I'd be broke. I mean, my sons, they know what DVDs are because they were still around when they were little. But I never forget, Cole one day came in and he said, "Hey, Dad, this is like 10 years ago. Somebody just put a book on our doorstep." I'm like, "What is it?" He said, "Well, it's big and yellow." I went, "Oh my gosh." He's like, "What is that?" I said, "Well, sit down. I'll explain to you what the yellow pages are." That was like the last year they ever tried that.
Yeah.
But he had never seen it. I still refer to, we'll just go to the yellow pages. The yellow pages is an index in our head, right? Now we just go to Google. So chat. That's changing now too. And most of the world is they're turning to Chat GPT or Gemini or Claude because they're not searching on Google anymore. That's my point. If your business is in Google search is still really relevant. Paid search, pay per click, pay per lead is still relevant.
Yeah.
But it is on its way out. I'm going to say it this way. It is morphing. I'm not going to say it's on its way out.
There's other options
now. So Chat GPT, more people are using Chat GPT to search when you used to use Google. So if you're only learning, like right now, I just talked to a web developer the other day, has a web company up north in Ohio. He said he just reduced his staff from 5 content writers down to 2, him and one other. He said, we don't need them anymore.
Amazon just laid off a ton of people for AI.
Yeah. So you have to grow your mind. I would say another part of longevity is putting yourself around people. As a man, I cannot tell you how valuable this has been to me. I can't even define how valuable, but I intentionally seek out men that are smarter than me and wiser than me. I've done it my whole life, and I don't know why. I think it was because I was an only child, and if I wanted friends, I had to make them, But I have lunch with men all the time that they can't help me. I'm curious. How did you get to where you are? What are you learning? I got a lunch coming up next week with a CEO of a huge company that is in the outdoor space, and I met him through a thing with Sam, and I don't need anything from him. I just want to learn,
right?
And I think that's one of the things I have learned about younger generations, and I think it's human nature. I am blown away at the number of people that work at a company that will not go to the CEO or the chief marketing officer, or if you're in accounting and you won't go to the CFO and say, "Hey, can I buy you lunch?" Well, let me tell you something. They remember that. They remember, oh, he wanted to take me to lunch. And it's not that I want your job, and I'm not trying to get a promotion. I want to know, go to that lunch. But let me tell you what, men that are high caliber people, they love to give away their mistakes. Oh yeah, dude. Let me tell you. You ask them, what was your pathway? Hey, tell me I'm going to ask you before we go to this lunch. I'm going to tell you tomorrow we're going to lunch, but I want to ask you, what was the single greatest mistake you made when you started your career? I want you to give me an answer tomorrow. Let him think about it. Like, tell him you're just wanting to learn. They will share that stuff. So you got to put yourself around men like that. I think another thing I wrote down when you asked me is play from strength. And that is going back, golf obviously has shaped my narrative, but there's a famous story about Ben Hogan. Ben Hogan goes down probably across the board, maybe is the best ball striker there ever was in the game of golf. As far as a ball striker is somebody that consistently hits the ball solid. Ben Hogan is in the top 2. There was one named Mo that died. And all the pro golfers said he was the best ball striker, but Hogan's probably the most known ball striker. Hogan was brutally accurate. One guy that used to shag balls for him said that he had a burlap sack that he would hold in his hands at 150 yards, and he could catch those balls in that burlap sack that Hogan would hit to him. That's how accurate Hogan was. And that was with a wooden shaft, Bubba.
Yeah.
Okay. So Hogan said, if you ever see me putting for birdie on the 11th green at Augusta National, I've mishit the ball. Like, wait, what? He said, Hogan was known not to be a good putter. Hogan was known not to be a good putter, and he hated his putting, and he knew he wasn't a good putter. And he said the 11th green at Augusta is tyrannical. It is deceptive and demonic because you can have a 3-foot putt that looks like it's going left and it went right. He said, you can't read it. It's the worst green on that golf course. It's so subtly deceptive. So he said, I made a decision. He said, I had more 3-putts on that green. So what I decided to do was from the middle of the fairway, miss the green to the right by about 10, 15 feet, chip up to a foot, make my par and get on. It took a lot of humility for Ben Hogan to say, I'm one of the greatest golfers that's ever lived, but I can't figure out that green, and I don't care. I'm just going to make par and move on.
Yep.
Play from strength. And I think for me, my strength is storytelling. I'm never going to be the best cinematographer. I'm never going to be the best audio guy. I'm never going to be the guy that kills the biggest deer ever or the most turkeys or whatever. I just want to tell a good story. And if I can keep making myself better right there, I think that matters. And then I would think there's 2 more. This plays into you a little bit. You asked me how I've stayed relevant. And this is interesting about relevancy. One of my greatest life ambitions is staying relevant. Now, I didn't say staying cool. Okay. There's a reason I don't wear a flat bill cap. I can't pull it off. First of all, I feel weird if I was wearing it. I don't look right in it. My buddy Tim Basagno, he's like 60.
He can wear it.
He freaking looks like a boss.
Yeah, it's like I agree.
He looks so good in a flat bill. Tim goes to Goodwill and buys a bunch of clothes. Looks like a boss. I go to Goodwill. It looks like I went to Goodwill.
Yeah, 100%. I feel that.
And I've learned one of the things I've done in staying relevant is don't try to stay hipster. Just be yourself. But I would say in that vein, a lot of those young dudes that are in the country music space right now, they probably think I'm joking when I say I'm just thankful y'all let me in the room. I actually really mean that. None of you guys have to let me in. I'm not a musician. I get to hang out with 30 to 60 of some really banger young dudes, man. You guys are changing the world. And if the world is going to be led by y'all, I feel pretty good about where the world's going. But you and I mean that because y'all have life. Michelle will tell you, like, those young dudes in the country space have put life in you, Jason. And I'm like, they have, because you see the world different. And I need to know how you see it, because I don't know that the way I see it is always the right way. Now, I'm not talking about biblical theology. I'm talking about how we move through the world, how we shape through the world.
What is culture doing?
What is culture doing? And so if you want to do that, you cannot I'm 50, at the moment of this podcast, I'm 52. I cannot surround myself with 52-year-olds.
Sure.
I have to surround myself with guys like you and younger, because I can learn something.
Yeah, it's funny though, because we feel the same way though. Like, you have wisdom and experience to offer.
Well, so I have mistakes to offer.
Well, whatever. Either way, it goes both ways. So
yeah, but I think it is. I always say, I think maybe my greatest strength when it comes to the young country artist is I'm not your dad, so I'm kind of like your uncle. I'm like, hey, I know you got drunk and you did a whole. I'm not telling your dad, but listen, Like, we got to talk about that.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
you're going to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? Like,
Yeah.
I have a lot of young artists reach out to me like, well, tell me why you're struggling with that. And I think I'm a safe bet because I'm not their dad.
Yeah.
But I try to be a peer, but putting myself around younger generations as a learner, not to pontificate. Let me just tell y'all how y'all boys need to be doing it right here now. Jeez.
That's kind of what I was saying earlier too. That's impressive is when I come to you and I say, hey, I just learned this. This is what's, currently working on thumbnail, title, descript, fill in the blank, YouTube. Hey, we don't need to be on TikTok, or we do need to be on TikTok, or this is what the TikTok trend is. And your answer every time is like, well, then do it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Okay, fine. We'll try that. Oh, okay. We should change the thumbnails on that. Let's try it then.
Yeah.
Versus, like I said, you could be like, well, no, that's not how it did in 2010.
Yeah.
So we're not doing
as
that.
fast as things are moving right now, this is the honest truth, especially in business. What you were doing 6 months ago
Doesn't work.
actually worked 6 months ago and could actually bankrupt you now.
I think, honestly, dude, if more people could wrap their head around this is the best time ever to make changes and do things because no one's going to see it or care in 90 days,
Yep.
you should go for it now. If there was ever a time to be like, let's try it all.
Let's try it.
I heard somebody say this the other day. Somebody was like, why are you so worried about the video you posted on TikTok that flopped? No one saw it.
That's a good point.
You're freaking out because no one saw it, but the good news is that no one saw it.
It flopped. Nobody
Delete
saw
it and try again.
Yeah, it's such a good. Isn't that great?
If no one saw it,
that's a great point.
then no one saw it.
It's the equivalent of you're in the woods, you missed a deer, you ain't got to tell nobody.
Right.
I mean,
the deer's gonna come back.
Yeah.
Try again tomorrow.
Or nobody's any the wiser. It's a great point. Like, experimentation is the key.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do right now with Wild and Kingdom, the reason we do Wild and Kingdom is you and I had this conversation yesterday. There have to be things that we do that never change. Then there has to be things that are always changing.
Yeah.
Like, we know that media doesn't change. Men need to hear the gospel. They need to hear biblical truth. How they consume it is changing all the time. And so we're trying to stay. I don't know that you can get ahead of it anymore. There was a time you probably could, way back in the day when technology was new. Like, if you were an early adopter of streaming, that's why Sportsman Channel, that is why that worked. The reason that, you want to know why Spring Chronicles worked on a technical level? And you can still go back, and that footage looks like something out of the 90s, man. It was early, it was like 2000s, but it was like, it looks like old classic sure. Outdoor television does, But at the time, I produced that show to be watched on a phone. The psychology of the show, it was a TV quality show meant for a 4-inch screen. Now, most people listening to that can't appreciate, but those of you that edit know exactly how different that is. Because our B-roll was tight, large. We let the bird get into 10 yards. Why? Because you're watching it on a phone. A guy is watching it on a lunch break on a construction site. The audio was louder than it should be because if you watched it on a TV, the font was huge. Everything was in your face. The tracks were loud. It was meant to be watched on a phone because I knew that's where guys were watching the show. So we produced a TV show for a phone, and it told a killer story with turkey tips. It was the psychology of the show, and that was innovation. So you could be ahead of the game, and because nobody was doing that. Now, dude, it's the Wild West.
Dude, you're fighting with content that's not even real.
Yeah,
literally.
You literally don't know. Is that an actual turkey?
Yeah.
It may not be. Is that an actual hunter? It may not be. That's the thing about the news right now that scared me to death. I don't actually know if Tucker Carlson said that or if he didn't. You don't know. Actors in Hollywood right now are freaking out because their biggest concern is that they're going to make movies saying it was Tom Cruise and it was never him. So I mean, it's a real deal, brother. And so I'm trying to figure out, what does that mean to the gospel? What does it mean to the kingdom? What does it mean to getting biblical truth into men's lives? And for that, you have to stay relevant. The last thing I would say, you ask about principles, is I think one of the things that I do try to make a habit of, I did it this week, is I've had some times more consistent than others, but I actually do build what I call reflection into my life. I will pull away for a half day, usually once a month, and I'll ask myself, what am I coming out of? Where am I at right now, and where am I headed? And that might be with my sons, my wife, my money, my health. What's on the horizon? You know, I don't know if he still does it, but I was told that Jeff Bezos at one time, probably doesn't do it anymore, but there was a long time that Bezos worked on Fridays, but he took no appointments. Fridays were reserved for the future. And I was like, man, that's brilliant, because he's like, yeah, Amazon can't survive if we're not thinking about where it's going. So most people in any form of business at all, they're working in the business, but they're not working on the business. I try to build a habit of soul reflection. Like, what is the Lord saying to me? What is he wanting to show me? And where are things headed? What you and I have those conversations often about, we know where Wild and Kingdom is right now. Where does it need to be in a year? You know, and the answer is we may not know, but we're constantly trying to shape that future. We're doing it, you know, with all kinds of projects in our lives, you know, trying to look at where is it headed. Mm-hmm. And so building reflection makes me slow down and not just work myself into a frenzy to where I'm actually going, am I working the right way?
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than, holy cow, I'm spending all this energy in the wrong spot.
Wasting my time.
Yeah.
In my efforts. Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
That's like just a good principle for your life. Like you said, whether it's your boys or what. I did the same thing yesterday. I freaking cried when I was doing it. Because I thought to myself, okay, I'm 29, I'm going to turn 30. I moved up here when I was 19. It's been 10 years. My life has had just so many things happen in 10 years.
Yeah.
That I haven't sat and thought about 10 years of time.
That's right.
And I was like, and now I'm about to enter a new 10. And it's going to look completely different.
It is going to look different.
So I think that's important. And to your point about just the business side, whether it's Wild and Kingdom or Mossberg or whoever's listening to whatever, like when I was still working at Red Bull, we did our business planning for the upcoming year. We would start those ideation sessions in May of the current year.
For the next year. Wow.
And by August, those had to be turned in, submitted, and approved. So
how brilliant. That's why it's Red Bull.
Yeah. And so you're always doing a year or a couple months out from the current year, but we're working under what was called I can't remember they called it their guiding light or something like that. Whatever it was called. We were doing that under a 3-year plan though. So every 3 years would be a new, hey, this is our 3-year goal. This is where we're at. This is where we want to be in 3. And that would be broken down all the way from every vertical, every marketing department.
I don't even see how you can make a 3-year plan right now.
Well, you can. Yeah. That was the point. So the point was,
trying.
Here's our overarching 3-year, and every year you're going to tell us what you're doing under that 3-year plan.
I think you can make an 18-month plan right now.
Yeah, you can't really do a 3, and they knew that. And it was
but when I hear the term now, let's get a 10-year vision, I literally laugh.
Yeah.
Dude, there's no way.
You can't.
Yeah, but 18 months you can.
Yeah.
And I would say that, you know, it's just important to reflect on, but if you don't like where you are, change it. And that's the thing. You have to be able to morph with it. You know, I go back to that principle that perhaps we can end with this. I know it sounds so cliche, but I'm just telling you, cliches tend to be cliches because they're true. You know, what goes up must come down.
Yeah.
Okay, that's true.
That's true.
Yeah. So what I think is you really, if you want longevity in anything, it's so often life's compared to a journey. And it is. And if you can take your hands, you know, the most frustrated people that I know are those that can only see an outcome and they hold on to it with white knuckles. They're trying to force an outcome. Man, if you're in business, man, there's times it's fat, there's times it's skinny, there's times it's working, there's times it's not. I don't know any business owner that has ever said, oh, geez, man, we've had 10 times we hit a wall and there'll be 10 more. But the greatest leaders and the greatest innovators, they're just people that really do enjoy the processes. And I think that's the point. You're trying to hone in the right processes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I had this conversation, I think, with Connor Smith. If you're white knuckling anything in your life, you're going to lose, especially from the Christian mindset. Because if we are going to sit here and say we firmly believe that our money, that our jobs, our family, if we believe all the things that we love were given to us, and you're living in a world where you believe it cannot be taken back from the person who gave it to you, and you're gripping like this, you're going to lose.
You're doomed.
Because you're setting a standard that doesn't exist. But also, if you'll just release your hand and open it like this, and you'll conform and submit to the idea that God will take and give when it's time, and you never have to do this, you just leave them like this the whole time, that's true freedom. It
is freedom. And because you've divorced yourself from an outcome.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Jesus was getting at wholeheartedly. I know it was what he was. In Matthew chapter 6, about do not worry about your life. Think about the gravity of that statement. None of us obey that.
No.
We all worry about our life. He is making a promise. I will provide. Do kingdom work. And man, even this week, that was great for me to go, just do the work, man. Do the work you're called to do. Be as smart as you know how to be. Be as wise as you know how to be. But just do the work and trust the Lord.
If you're firmly bent and set on the idea that the harder you white knuckle or the harder you work is going to determine whether or not you get paid and eat, goes completely against what he's saying to you right there.
And he's not saying...
He's not saying don't work.
He's not saying don't work.
Yeah.
He's not saying be lazy.
Yeah.
He's saying seek first the kingdom. Meaning, in whatever job you do, this is the glory of, I think, when you look at the way we look at the American church these days, we look at pastors as the ministry doers.
Sure.
You won't find that anywhere in the New Testament.
Just talked about that with Tyler.
You won't find it anywhere in the New Testament. In the New Testament, we are all the priest. Every one of us.
All those dudes had jobs.
All of them had jobs.
He never said, hey, put your fishing rod down and come sit in this church.
I wrote my entire doctoral dissertation around the idea that there's something conspicuously absent from Matthew chapter 4 in Peter's call. Jesus never said stop fishing.
Yes.
He just said follow me.
Yep.
He never said stop fishing.
Yep. He never asked.
I'll make you a fisher of men.
He never told any of them to
stop.
But
they were all, Jesus had a job. I mean, that money came in as a carpenter, right? Paul made tents, and I think he made tents because he didn't want to be beholden to churches. I'm not saying it's wrong. Do not hear me say that. I'm saying ministry wasn't given to those that have reverend in front of their name. It was given to all of us. And so do the work.
Do the work.
Do the work and do the work and let the Lord build the kingdom. And there's a promise in there. If you will seek the kingdom, I will take care of you. And that's a journey that is worth taking.
I agree.
Good questions. I hope if you haven't seen the Oklahoma hunt, boy, I hope you do. There's some beautiful people in that hunt, not me and you. There's just people that, going back to the journey, Mitch and his family, that church.
Dude, his wife's called me twice this week.
Really?
About these podcasts she's been listening to that she's had me on her brain the whole time.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, man, that's
the Lord. That's why you do it.
Yep.
I first met him through, he said, man, one of your DVDs changed our church. And I'm like, really? That was so long ago. We had that conversation like a year and a half ago, and it's been that long. I mean, it's just your work has longevity.
It matters.
Your work has longevity if it's kingdom work.
Yeah.
And man, then I got a really good friend out of that. So that's a big payoff, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, thank you. Check us out at wildandkingdom.com. And man, we mean it, man. Whatever you do, like seriously, share the gospel by sharing some of these tools that we have out there, because we're making them for y'all. We're not making them because we think it's cool. We're making them for people to use.
Yeah.
So wildandkingdom.com, and we'll see you again next time.
See you there.